that you have to act a certain way when you're by the Har HaBayit, when you have the Temple Mount. You cannot spit over there. You cannot wear your money belt over there. You can't even walk with a walking cane. And some say it means you put a walking stick that gets dirty, therefore it's not respectful. And some say even if it's not dirty, let's say people would go with these sticks that were like show honor, right? Like Winston Churchill. You see the picture of him with the stick. It was like a cane type. It's a fancy. It's a sign of prestige, but it's not respectful. You're from Hashem, the Har HaBayit. You're showing you're wearing, you're acting in such a big fashion, so to speak. Therefore, we also take off our shoes. You can't walk with shoes in the Har HaBayit because you have to be humility. Humility is a key. So that's what we said. So now, and we said, then the Gemara said yesterday, the last thing we said was that if a person today would go ahead and spit on the Har HaBayit and Temple Mount, we know how Temple Mount has been a lot in the news over the years. Not as recent, not as much, but years ago, 15, 20 years ago, Ariel Sharon and all those things, he would go to the Har HaBayit, he'd go to the Temple Mount, and sometimes the politicians want to show it's our place, it's our thing, and then of course a lot of Arabs get upset, and there's been a lot of maybe acts that the Arabs use when the Jews go by the Temple Mount. They use it as an excuse for them to attack Jews. It's been a lot in the news. So you hear Temple Mount, and here we're learning about the Temple of the Har HaBayit, but we don't go to the Temple Mount. Ariel Sharon did not ask the rabbi, "Can I go there?" He did not ask permission, but there might be opinions. Good morning, Morris. That there might be an opinion that under certain circumstances, certain places in the Temple Mount, if you go to the mikveh and you do certain things beforehand, certain areas you might be, but we don't allow that. That's a minority opinion. We say, everybody says, we say to the rabbi, say, don't go, can't go there. Not supposed to go there. Because it could be, it's correct if a person goes to certain spots that when he's not, because we're all tamei meit. The person goes to a funeral. He never had the ashes of the paraduma to remove the tumah. So you still have contamination on you, and therefore it's a big serious sin to go there. But the Kodesh Kodashim is much more in, but this is like outside. Morning, Kiva. You have the Kodesh Kodashim is we have the Beit HaMikdash was split into two parts, right? There was a section you had a mechitza, you had a parochas, you had a curtain that separated between the Holy of Holies and outside the Holy of Holies, which in the Holy of Holies you had the Aron, the Holy Ark, which contained the Luchot, and the Kohen Gadol only went there once a year to the Holy of Holies. So that place was pretty much off limits, generally speaking, the Holy of Holies. But then right outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim is where the menorah was, and there was a mizbeach inside the heichal, like you call it, like within a room of some sort. And you had the shulchan, you had a lot of the table with the breads, a lot of things going on in that room. Then outside in the courtyard, there was different courtyards that things were going on, slaughtering of animals, morning cows, and other things that were going on in the courtyard. There was another mizbeach in the courtyard that they brought korbanot. So there was, that, and then you had outside of the courtyard. Then there was an area, Temple Mount, Har HaBayit, which was called the Har HaBayit. So we're way before, Daniel. We're way before you got to the. It's like before. This is way before you got to the Beit HaMikdash itself. This is the area in front. Akiva, and again, we want to welcome back Morris. Okay. So the Goyim built the dome. They say they built the Dome of the Rock on the area where the Beit HaMikdash, some say where the building itself stood of the Beit HaMikdash. I think that's what people say. That's what they built the Dome of the Rock. It's very disgraceful that they take the holy place and they built their place of worship on that spot. But like I mentioned, the irony is that really it's interesting that if they would not, that the fact that the Arabs control a lot of that area has prevented many Jews from going there, and therefore, that, in a certain sense, that's the positive thing to come out if it's the Jews are not going to a place where they're not allowed to go, because the point is that the holiness remains not only in the time during the Beit HaMikdash is around, even today, the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, that area is still holy. And that's why it says that Hashem is the Shekhinah, divine presence, is always there. And therefore, because it's always there, if you go ahead and you spit in that spot in the Harabayit, it's like you're spitting in Hashem's face. That if this person spits today. And therefore also it says that, the Kotel Hamaravi, that Kotel, that wall, there is also a special divine presence that's also there. Even though that's not the Harabayit, that doesn't have that level, because therefore you wouldn't be able to go with your shoes next to the Kotel, you wouldn't be able to, right? We go with our shoes, but it still has very high level of Kedusha by the Kotel. The Kotel is a shul. People pray there. It's a designated spot for prayer. So there are people who don't realize it has the status of a shul. And you have to treat that area by the Kotel. This is a shul. This is where people come together. They gather together to pray. You have to treat it with a certain level of respect and awe and reverence, just like when you're in a shul upstairs. I saw yesterday after davening, whatever, sometimes people are talking business, about business. Sometimes they're talking business in shul. It's beautiful people to talk business. They want to help each other out. Jews doing business together is a big mitzvah. Jew from Jew, instead of buying from a Gentile, doing business with a Jew is a special mitzvah. You could support a Jew. But you have it's extra mitzvah, support your brother first. Brother comes first. You want to buy from a non-Jew, okay. But if you have the opportunity to buy from a Jew first, so why don't you support your brother, right? He's your brother. But proper place for that conversation is, let's go out in the hallway. Let's go downstairs. Let's go by the staircase. Let's not in the sanctuary itself. They got a nice lobby over here. They got a downstairs breakfast room. They got a lot of space here. You can talk as much business. It's not in the building. The building itself doesn't. The laws of the sanctuary applies to the sanctuary itself. It does not apply to the. Now, I would think it's respectful. You come into a building. Good morning, everyone. People should come into a building with a certain. The person should have said, I'm going to walk into the building in my bathing suit, and then I'll change into something. I don't think it's respectful. Good morning, to walk into the building of a shul in a bathing suit. You know what I'm saying? Because still you're coming into the building of the shul, but technically it's not. There's no holiness per se to the hallway here of the shul. This is the hallway of a shul. It's not used for praying purposes. It's used as a hallway. That's what it would, and therefore it's brought down that, we said, the Gemara said, we're learning about that you cannot use a shul as a shortcut, right? If let's say if a guy wants to go to the patio, it's called the patio upstairs, and they keep sukkah, right? You call it a patio, what's it called? Okay? And if a guy says, you know what, I want to have business meeting. And I want to have the business meeting on the patio here. I want to have a business patio, no problem. But I want to get to, how am I going to get to the patio? I'm going to cut through the shul. But let's say that I have another way to go. I go to the patio by taking the elevator up to the patio. But I'm using the shul as a shortcut to get to the patio. So you can't do that. So therefore what would you do? You go into the shul, say a pasuk, spend a few minutes in the shul, say a pasuk. If you're ever going to cutting through a shul to get to the other side, using the shul as a shortcut, you have to say something. The shul cannot be used. The shul itself. You understand what I'm saying, Mark? But if you want to cut, more than say, but if you're going to go through one lobby to another lobby, when it kind of the shul, you have to. Even if I want to go to the other street, I'm just going to cut through the lobby of the shul. That should not be a problem. Okay, so the Gemara says. The last thing, Amar Rava. So Rava says, Rikika Beis HaKnesses, we're on the bottom, Mr. Haber, we welcome you. We're on 62B, 62B6 on the bottom. And, yeah. Yes, good morning, Yosef Atzadik, yes. Here's just upstairs to the patio.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Yes. sometimes pass by the shul, and sometimes go directly out, and pass. Right. So I would say if you're going through the shul to get to the patio, so say a pasuk, say a pasuk from the Torah, say a parak Tehillim, say a pasuk from Tehillim, say something. Use it. Meaning, because once you use it, that's what we had in the Gemara. Once you use it as a shul for shul purposes, then you could continue to use it as a text. That's not a problem. He said, let's say they pray here, then they go up to breakfast upstairs in the patio. So I'm saying, but you're cutting through the shul to get to using the shul as the shortcut to get to the. So you read generally you should. So therefore you should say a pasuk. You should say a pasuk when you're going to there. Say a pasuk or sit down in the shul for a minute. Sitting down is also a mitzvah. To sit in the shul, the guy wants to just hang out in the shul. Now we recommend you come hang out, not just hang out in the shul. Do something more positive. Learn, say Tehillim, but just to sit in a synagogue is a mitzvah. Mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to sit in a holy place. You've entered into a holy place. People don't realize that. Or right, retired people that they would go come sit in the synagogue. And you know what will happen? They'll come to sit in the synagogue. They'll meet holy people in the synagogue. They'll answer amen in the synagogue. The opportunity. The more you're in a holy place, put yourself into a holy place. It's a mitzvah to be in a holy place. Just like there's a mitzvah to attach yourself to a Torah scholar. It's one of 613 mitzvot. To connect with Torah scholar, talk with them, do business with them, eat and drink with them, the Rambam says. Any type of attachment to Torah scholars, connect. That's the Rambam. There's a mitzvah, one of the 613 mitzvot. Because what will happen when you attach yourself to a Torah scholar? He's not going to be talking about the Super Bowl so much, right? He's going to be talking about more important things in life, with all due respect to the Super Bowl. Okay? Okay. So now we said yesterday, Amar Rava. Good morning, Jaime. Amar Rava, we're on 62b, 6 on the bottom column. Amar Rava, Rikika, the Beisa Knesset Sharia. Spitting in the synagogue is permitted. Now, what does that mean? Not during the time of while you're davening. Let's say it says you're able to go ahead and spit, and the Gemara is going to question this idea. Take it so easily. This idea that a person can technically spit. And some explain this is talking about in the old days when they had a dirt floor, and they would spit on the floor and they would just rub it with the dirt. It was much more common, much more common in the way that people were. In our days, we don't have such type of floors. It's not common, and therefore today we will not be able to go ahead and spit. And if you're in such a spit in a shul, obviously into a tissue, that's not considered a disrespectful situation. However, again, the time of the Gemara where the floor was dirt, people were not particular about it. It wasn't something that was looked at as a very disrespectful type of act, because it would be cleaned up right by the dirt right away, and people weren't so particular about it. But in our days, when nobody spits in his house and rubs it with the foot on the ground, therefore it would be partial. It's forbidden to do that in the synagogue, to go ahead and spit on the floor or something like that in the synagogue. But again, we're talking about in the old days where it's much more common, and again, but this could not be done in the Harabayit. But was able to. The Gemara says it can be done in a synagogue, and the Gemara is going to challenge. It's not going to take it so simply. And I saw a comment over here. Let's see what it says. Nun Ches. B'shas atfila, but if you're middle of davening, see the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Samach Beis Sif Tes. So take a look in Samach Beis Sif Tes in the Shulchan Aruch. See what the Shulchan Aruch says. Yeah, it talks about trying. Obviously, you're trying your best to avoid spitting. So let's continue. Let's go back to the Gemara. The bottom we said of 62b6. Amar Rava, Rikika Beis HaKnesset Sharia. In a shul, in a synagogue, a dirt floor, you're typically allowed to go ahead and spit, and you'll just push the, clean it with the dirt of the floor. Midi de havia, like a shul, wearing shoes in the synagogue. That just like now shoes for Harabayit. Now with top column, right 62b6, top column. Shoes you were not allowed to wear in the Harabayit, and you're not allowed to wear shoes in the Harabayit, but even today in the Harabayit, the person would go on the Harabayit, they would have to take off the shoes. They would be going on the Harabayit. We say we can't go on the Harabayit today, but shoes in the Harabayit is forbidden, but yet they said, but in synagogue, you're allowed to wear shoes. Did everybody ever think of the fact whether do I have a right? Am I allowed? Meaning, we need to teach us that you're allowed to go ahead. You should know the Gemara. You're allowed to wear shoes in the synagogue. You thought that you cannot wear shoes in the synagogue because shoes is a sign of great comfort, and you're in front of Hashem, and maybe you shouldn't be wearing the shoes. Just like in the Harabayit, in the holy places, Hashem says when Hashem sees Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe when he appears to Moshe is by the holy place. You should take off your shoes take off your shoes. The Kohanim do it for other reasons. One reason why the Kohanim do it is because it could be that the bottom of their shoe might be dirty and it's not respectful for them to say a bracha to the kahal with dirty shoes, and therefore that's more out of respect for the kahal that the Kohanim take off the shoes. That's one reason it's given. Without shoes, no shoes, right? Good morning. And all the people that whenever we would enter into those areas, we all had our shoes off. When we would enter by the area bringing the korbanot, shoes were off. Well, clean it. Maybe that might be another point. That seems to be a separate point. Even if your feet, meaning, let's say you have clean shoes, beautiful new shoes, you can't wear them. Can't wear the most expensive pair of shoes, and you want to wear them in the Harabayit. You can't wear in the Harabayit, but you could go ahead and wear them in shul. They did not forbade wearing shoes in a shul. The Afrikika, so too spitting, the Harabayit also. Specifically in the Harabayit is spitting forbidden, but when you're not in the Harabayit, Beis HaKnesset Shari. But if a person was spit in the Beit HaKnesset, and it would be permitted the same way that shows you that the degree of restrictions that we have in the synagogue is not the same level as in the Harabayit, the Temple Mount, and therefore we have a right to go ahead the same way we could wear shoes. We could spit. If we need to spit, we could technically spit, covered up with the dirt of the ground, and that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara is going to challenge us. We're going to stay tuned. Papa says to Rav, some say Ravina says to Rav, at the Yolev Minal, you're learning from shoes. You're saying we found a leniency by shoes in the synagogue. So too, there'll be a leniency regarding spitting. So the Gemara says, at the Yolev Minal, they live mikapandria. You should learn out from the law of a shortcut. In the time of the Beit HaMikdash, or by the Harabayit, for the Temple Mount, I can't use the Temple Mount as a shortcut. I want to cut to the other side. I want to go through, not because I wanted to go to Harabayit to do for the purposes of service of Hashem. I want to go to the Temple Mount. I want to use it as a shortcut to get to the other side. I can't do that. I can't do that not only in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, I can't do that even today. The same way, can I use a synagogue today as a shortcut? I can't use a synagogue as a shortcut to cut through the sanctuary to go to the other side. So the same way I can't use a synagogue as a shortcut today, I should also not be able to speak today. I have two laws. One law is strict and one law is lenient. and I have three, we're dealing with three cases. Three cases. Shortcut, shoes, spitting. Mr. Haber, we got three cases on the table. Now we have three cases. Now the question, shortcut, spitting, and shoes. And what do we say about shoes? You could wear shoes. We say, and now the question is, we want to know what the given, so to speak, is. You can't make a synagogue as a shortcut. The given is you could go ahead and wear shoes in a synagogue. That became the given today. Now the question is, what about spitting? The spitting is the third thing, and we want to know what should we compare spitting to? Should we say just like shoes you could wear in the synagogue, you can also spit in the synagogue? Or do you say just like you can't use it as a shortcut, you shouldn't be able to spit in the short? So that's what what is it? Yes. Harabayit? Because right. But the Gemara brought a pasuk that there's a high level of Shekhinah in the Harabayit, that the high level of divine presence is in the Harabayit, and therefore that level, there's different levels of Shekhinah, there's different levels of divine presence, and that level is so strong that you cannot spit in the Harabayit. It's like you're spitting in God's face. That's what the Gemara says. If you spit by the Harabayit today, it's like you're spitting in God's face, so to speak. So that would be as far as to say that there's a Shekhinah in the synagogue, but it's not the same level. And also, what do you say? Okay, but again, they cleaned it. They cleaned it. What? No, so I'm saying the question is not in the synagogue or whatever you would just clean it. Whatever it would, if you would clean it, what would you be allowed to go ahead, spit and just clean it with your? Talking about a dirt floor. We're not talking about our synagogue. Talking about the old dirt floors. Can I spit and clean it with my foot? That's the question. So the Gemara says you could, because we learned it out from shoes. You can wear shoes, so too you should be able to. So the Gemara says, no, why compare to shoes compared to shortcut? You can't make it a shortcut, so you shouldn't be able to spit. That's what the Gemara's question is. Learn from the fact that you can't make it into a shortcut. You should also, why learn from something to create a leniency? Learn from the other thing that will create a strictness. What's more compelling that you want to go ahead and learn from this than from that? That's the Gemara's question. On Malay, so he tells them back. Rava says, what do you mean? Tana Yolav Minal. Va'at Amrat the Kapandria. The Tana says the same way, shoes. He says the Tana for spitting from shoes. And what did the Tana say from shoes? The Tana said that in the Beit HaMikdash, if you can't wear shoes, you can't spit, right? That was the Tana says at the time of the Beit HaMikdash, or the Harabayit. In the Harabayit, he says you can't go ahead and spit. How does he know you can't spit? But it's shoes. If you can't wear shoes in the Harabayit, you certainly can't spit. So we see he uses the shoes as a source. He compares spitting. He uses a source of limud, of teaching. He looks at the shoes to indicate to him what the law by spitting is. He says, if shoes I can't wear in the Harabayit, certainly I can't spit. And therefore, and since he's using shoes as his point of reference, so therefore, when it comes to the synagogue, we also use shoes as a point of reference. And even though you can't wear shoes in the Harabayit, the Temple Mount, but you can wear shoes in the synagogue, so too I should be able to spit in the synagogue. That's what he's going to say. And then the Gemara is going to challenge that also. Okay. So the Gemara says, Tana Yalef and Minal, and you want to learn from Kapandria. So the question is, Mahi, where does the Tana learn from Minal? The Tanya, we learned in the Bryce, so in the bottom paragraph on 62b6, Adam Laharabayit. It says a person cannot enter the Temple Mount, lo b'maklo should be a dough, not with his walking stick. You know, that stick, we spoke about that walking stick. You can't, we're not talking about a stick that you need for your cane to help support your walking. That doesn't seem, many will say that's not a problem. Talking about a stick, that's a sign of nobility, that type of stick, or the stick is dirty, type of stick that you use in and and it gets dirty. So that will also be disrespectful. And you can't be wearing shoes. Let's say you have money tied in some sort of handkerchief or something. It's not, you can't walk in with money to the Harabayit, Temple Mount, in a handkerchief. It's not respectful. Or because it seems that it's not that you show money most probably is a sign of wealth. You're walking in with the money in this cloth, and it's not, and you're not supposed to be you're in front of Hashem in such a holy place. You shouldn't be doing things that show your nobility of some sort. So that's what. Okay, maybe he has to put his money somewhere before he comes, because he can't wear his money belt either. So he has to. It's some sort of belt that they would. See, he says on the commentary says, Mr. Haber, if it's the idea, if a guy would be showing, if you have money hidden, or in, you're not showing your money. Maybe it's very common. You're going to do business. You bring money. You put it into some sort of nice. You put it into a towel, a kerchief, or something. It looks like that's what you do. Like a guy bringing a box with money, and looks like you're coming to do business. So therefore, that would be but however, you could go with money concealed in a way. If it's not like a wallet, right? That's what one is permitted. However, to send it with money concealed. So that seems to be this. But this money belt, which is outside his clothing, meaning because it says kudoso. If you're wearing the money belt, I'm showing off my money belt. If you put the wallet in your pocket, nobody sees, it's not in public, you should be able to wear that. You should be able to come in with money in your pocket. But to come in with money like in a box, I'm walking with this money in here. I'm walking with the money, looks like I'm going to do business. Or I'm coming with my money belt. Everybody sees it's public. I'm walking in with my belt. That's a sign that it's your money belt. They carried money. He carried coins. Well, I presume what was their money that they didn't have dollar bills? They had coins. So that was the general currency was coins. So you're having your coins attached to you, but it's not. That's why the Gemara says, his money belt hung outside his clothing. If you're wearing your underwear, like the cops, it's exposed their gun. You see everything. So if you're wearing your money belt outside your clothes, it's a problem. But if you wear your money belt inside your clothing, it's not a problem. That's what it would seem to be. It's not. So.
This is not allowed, but it was allowed in a certain sense. Isn't it confusing if you live in those times where things are in a state of change or modification?
Yeah, the rabbis, Hashem gave it to the rabbis to, whenever different time periods, people need different things, different communities need different laws to be enacted to help guard the Torah, to safeguard the Torah. So basically, the rabbis in the time of the Gemara, the rabbis, you had the Anshe Knesset Agdola, there was the rabbis there was Moshe Rabbeinu, there was something called the Torah Sheval Peh, the oral law that was given over from rabbi to rabbi, from Moshe. So they interpreted the pasuk. They explained when Hashem gave Moshe the written law, he gave an oral law with an explanation. So now there's a law that says you have to have reverence for the Mikdash. Mikdashi Torah, you have to act with certain reverence. And the law was given over what's called basic law, what's called reverence. If you're going to go ahead and you wear certain things, wear the money belt out, these type of things. So those things should apply for all generations. That shouldn't change. Or wearing shoes. That would apply from all the way back till now. That won't change. Right. I'm saying. What did you say? But even though we don't have, right, but the law was that even though there's no Beit HaMikdash, so we said that in the Harabayit, we said that many of those laws still apply because of the holiness of the place remains. That's what we said. But again, it's a
they think are important and it's suggested general principle of doing what's right.
Right, but generally, when rabbis make an enactment, many times we say that that enactment cannot be changed unless you have a bezdin, a court of law that's greater in number and wisdom than the previous court in order to change something that a previous. When a bezdin, you see, there's certain things that the bezdin that the court enacts. When a court on their own creates a safeguard or some sort of law, if you want to change that law, you have to have a court that's greater in number and wisdom to change that law. And generally, you don't have that. That's why we don't have that another court that's greater than the previous court. Therefore, that's why so many of the enactments remain. Because even if you might feel that even if some of the reasons might fall away, the rabbis sometimes made two types of enactments. Sometimes they made a law that they said the law only applies when the reason applies. When the reason doesn't apply, the law doesn't apply. So certain laws like that. And there's certain other laws that independent whether the reason applies today, in order for it to be removed from the book, so to speak, you need a greater court to remove it. So those are the two different types of enactments of the rabbis. Okay, so the Gemara says, the last line of the page. You can't make the Tahara Bayit a shortcut. Yes. It's not covered for the Harabayit, which is with Harabayit is connected to the divine presence. Morning, Mr. Bennett. Good to see you.
And also for Kavana fashion, but that's why both Kavani, they're right. One said because the shortcut, the other one is for the shoes, but they both are right.
But again, we're saying the floor will be clean. But it's dirt floor and it's going to be clean. But it's still the act of spitting in the Harabayit. Right, there's something called right. Right. So the question is right. So it seems that maybe the spitting in those days, people would spit in their house on the floor, in the dirt floor, and it was much more normal type of act to be done. So what Mr. Haber was saying before is sometimes you could have a law that could have been permitted in that time period, but today it's not. It's disrespectful. It's not considered a proper conduct in a synagogue. So in the old days, maybe because the floor, there also the case is different. Also, the floor was a dirt floor. Our floor is not a dirt floor. So the fact that the law back then, the law in the time of the Gemara when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, you could spit in the shul on the floor because the floor was a dirt floor. That was one type of case. But today the case is, number one, our floors are different, and number two is even if we would have it. Even if we would have a dirt floor, shul, but that's not something that people normally would do in their own house. And since you won't do that in your house, you shouldn't be able to do it in the synagogue. It would be that would be called disrespectful to do that act. So now we're learning the Gemara about things that might be disrespectful, or is it called a disrespectful act or not? So what do you think when a person goes ahead and he takes out his cell phone during the prayer? Isn't that a disrespectful act? What do you think if a person talks during the Chazarah? Isn't that a disrespectful act? You're in the synagogue. It's a time of prayer. and you're doing, where is the respect? The Chazan is davening, the Chazan is talking, and so that's also, we need to take here we're all learning about sensitivity to respect. Can I do this? Can I not do that? In a synagogue, I could do that, I can't do that. So I think we have to ask ourselves the question to apply these laws to today's days. Okay, we should remember that our shuls are a mikdash ma'at. It's a mini Beit HaMikdash, and we have to treat it with great respect. And therefore, we see that's why there's all these laws. But what can we do in the shul? What we can't do in shul. Have a great day, everybody. Morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Have a great day. Thank you. Mr. Haber is saying something. Yes.
I mean, is a very complicated and profound consideration. We have in the Syrian community 100 years ago, they made it the Gezerah in the community that they would not accept converts.
Right.
They wouldn't accept them under any circumstances. And this Gezerah is in direct contradiction to our understanding what the importance of a convert is. How many times is mentioned in the Torah itself that we have to treat converts in a very and love them, treat them, and embrace them, and so on and so forth, because they didn't want condescension to a certain group or a race. So if somebody was to treat a convert poorly, it would be a direct contradiction. All of a sudden, the rabbis came along in the 30s, 1930s, such, and they saw that the community, if it would allow converts to come in, would create a great deal of confusion. So they made this law. You could just imagine how they felt up to for hundreds of years, thousands of years, that converts should be allowed and embraced. Now all of a sudden they came along and changed it. Who would have the? Now we see 100 years. For 100 years, you see how right they were for the community, and but the law says that if the rabbis of that generation feel that that's the right thing to do and that's the right thing to adjudicate for the community,
you gotta follow them.
you got to follow them. It's an amazing thing, amazing, and they see that the result was fabulous. We have intermarriage in a certain community, as we know,
right?
almost nothing compared to the world of Jews. So it's what else did they do? They said that the converts was one thing. There was another one that shows the subjective application of the law. I'll think of it. I'll take it.
You always want to stay, but you have your homework.
Yeah.
Rabbi, by a lot of rabbis, I know convert, it's actually considered to be a higher soul in a way, because they had to walk their way to be Jewish, and to find how to get back to be Jewish, because, to born a Jewish, in a way, to be into a high religious family, it's just born into that, and you just follow whatever the stream is. If you born circular and you become to be religious, it's already like a much more effort. But to born a goy and to become a Jewish, it's much higher level, because God put you to trust you that you will find your way to be back a Jewish, and even Rabbi Akiva, and a lot of rabbis always said, when you convert to be non-Jewish to be a Jewish, you're putting so much, like you're losing, like Abraham, you lose everything. You lose everything. You lose your family in many times.
Yeah, yes, it's a big move, it's very interesting what you said, Yosef. But that's a big move, whether the neshama is a greater neshama or not, but I believe, like you said, it's similar to the Baal Tshuva, that the Baal Tshuva, we find such a concept, Mokum Shabbat Tshuva Omdim, Ein Tzadikim Gemurim Omdim. Excuse me for putting on my sweater.
Yeah, it's okay, Rabbi. I know it's okay.
I'm going to catch a minyan.
I
Okay,
know.
Yosef, keep up your great work. Thank you for being on. Thank you for your comments and have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you 10 times more.
Thank you. Keep it up. Thank
And
you.
come to visit one day, Rabbi.
Where? Woodstock, right?
For now, Woodstock, yeah.
I hear you. Yosef, you're gonna come in for the singing?
I don't think so, Rabbi. I'm sorry. My hands are full over here.
Okay. Morning. A great day. Okay, Yosef, have a great day. Kiva, have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.